5-minute timer for myself.
Okay. Oh.
So I know when to wrap it up.
Hi, everybody.
Wrap it up, chick.
And we're live.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I am not Ricardo. I am Sarah, and I am here to introduce my friend and wonderful, wonderful human being, Christine Bannister. So Christine recently started a new business endeavor as Christine Jean Coaching, and is also a 26-year veteran and 911 supervisor. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And thanks to Ricardo, too, for having me.
Yes. So I'm going to exit, and just a reminder, if you all have questions, you can use the Ask a Question feature there at the bottom of your screen, and I will throw it to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Take it away.
Well, hey, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are. I am thrilled to be here today and really excited to have this opportunity and be just very humbled to be asked to share my story. And I hope it's something that you'll be able to relate to. But if you have any questions about anything I talk about today, please feel free, like Sarah said, to look below at the Ask a Question, and feel free to put whatever you want in the chat. I'm going to try to keep track in there while I'm talking, but we'll see how that goes. If not, I'll go back after I'm done and go through the chat. And you can always put your email in there, or you can email me. I'll put my contact information in later on. But I am excited to share my story, and everyone has a story, right? We all do, and they're each unique and real. In fact, you have a story, and your story, it gives hope, and it leads the way for others. And what I believe is that in 911, our stories have not been told enough. They just haven't. And Ricardo's been doing an amazing job for years of trying to create a platform for us to share and build and be real and raw with each other. And so I appreciate that about him so much. But and I appreciate this platform today where I can share a story about 911 and PTSD and how that led me to become a life coach. And, you know, it's important that we share our stories. Why? Well, because for as long as I can remember, we've been told to suck it up, right? We've been told to keep going, to take the next call, go run the next call, whatever that looks like. And some of us have been taught some pretty dysfunctional coping mechanisms, but they don't really work in the long run. And some of those things hurt me along the way, and I've realized, and I know better now. And so now, right, I have an obligation. I have a commitment to you and to me to share and help you to be better and do better. So just a quick question for all of you. What do you think about a life coach? I have a poll in there. If you look on the bottom of your screen, like my finger's big. Right there's a poll, and you can go into the poll. I have 2 of them in there. I'd love to get your feedback. But what do you think about a life coach? Have you had one? Have you ever heard of it before? What do you think about a life coach? Is it a good thing for you? Do you kind of like scrunch your face like I do when you hear that term? Because I feel compelled to be really honest with you, but I actually hate the term life coach, and I always have. It's just seems so cliche to me and kind of out there and weird and like what is a life coach? But the ironic thing is that growing up, I was an athlete, and I had coaches, sometimes multiple coaches, for what I was in. Through my career, I've had coaches, whether it be a supervisor or a lead or whoever, you know, just someone doing a great job in the business. They've coached me along the way. I've had business mentors. And so when I really thought about it, like I've had a number of coaches, and you probably have too. Those coaches have helped me to set goals. They've challenged me, and they've been able to really grow me in ways and push me to grow in ways that maybe I wouldn't have done for myself. And so they've been a huge asset to me along the way. And so when I decided to be a life coach, which was not part of my plan, I'll be honest with you, but through my story today, you're going to see how I ended up here, and it's awesome and beautiful. But when I decided to be a life coach and I got my certification and I was trying to figure out how to build a business, what I decided to do was to make it unique for me and for what I've been through and who I want to help. And who I want to help is you, like-minded emergency responders, first responders. That's really where my story speaks to. And so what I am and who I am is I'm Christine Jean Coaching, and I'm a courage coach, and I specialize in trauma support because it's what I know and it's what I've lived through. And I have a great story of hope, and I want to share that with you today. So thank you. I also want to be honest and let you know that this is the first time that I've told this story online for a lot of people. I've shared it only one other time at a women's conference that was very small and intimate. And I cried a lot during that first time. So I'm hoping and praying that I'm going to keep it together. But if I don't, I may have a couple tears. Just give me a little grace to keep my thoughts moving. And I feel like I have a lot of content to cover. So I'm going to jam through some of this pretty quickly. But to start, people always ask me how I've survived 26 years in the business. And so, I started when I was like 18, 19 years old. I was so young. And I started as a firefighter and became an EMT. I then became a MPO, or motor pump operator. So I got to drive fire truck, pump water. It was amazing. And eventually went on to become a paramedic. And then after that, I actually had knee surgery. I had my ACL replaced. And that's when I started dispatching. And so I started dispatching for the ambulance company, the private company that I worked for, and then eventually went on to other things. And that's how I ended up today. I'm a 16-year 911 dispatch supervisor veteran. So I've had this amazing career, and I do love what I do. But people always ask me, how have you survived, Christine? And without hesitation, I got to tell you, my faith has been a foundational component to surviving this career. My faith, I always come back to it. It's my steady. And as I have learned to surrender to wellness and really own my truth, those three things, those three components have been what has kept me alive in 911 and in emergency services. This single moment in time that I'd like to share with you, a single moment in time, it changed my whole life, my whole being. It changed the trajectory of my life that one day. And ultimately, the story that I'm going to share with you, it's a story about victory. It's a story about conquering. So just hold on, because it gets dark for a little while here. But for a long time, there was just too much happening. I was too busy, and I kept myself occupied and avoiding. Have you ever avoided someone? Have you ever avoided something? What about a feeling? What about a red flag? Have you avoided those things? Well, me too. I did that for a really long time. I did it because I thought that's what I had to do to survive. I failed to listen to my body. I didn't listen to my brain as it screamed for attention. I ignored myself and everything that I needed. And then one day it happened. It just happened in a moment, in a single breath, everything. And I didn't know it then, but everything changed. And I went through a really dark valley. My brain and my body, they had had enough, and they revolted. And it got to the point where I had no choice, and I had to stop everything and then start over again. And that's where the hope comes into this story. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it resonates with you. And I hope you can take something away from this and be different today, be different tomorrow, and continue to walk in your journey and share your journey. But this story that I have, I call it the Unraveling. And you're going to see how things began unraveling a really long time ago. And to tell you about it, I'm going to step back to a moment. August 6th of 2018, I was sitting in a coffee house. And I left that coffee house. I'd finished what I was working on. And I pulled up to a stop sign. And very slowly, I creeped out to make a left-hand turn. And this lady pulled out, and she hit the passenger side of my truck. And I drive this huge truck. And I don't know how she didn't see me or what happened, but she dented the passenger side of my truck. And this moment, it changed the whole trajectory of my life. And if we're going to keep going forward in the story, we have to keep going backwards. And so what I'd like to tell you about is how the unraveling in my life began a long time ago, when I started my career. And what I didn't know then was that I lived in fear a lot. I lived on eggshells. I didn't have a lot of boundaries, and I allowed people to treat me in a lot of different ways. And the irony of that is that I was always taking care of everyone else in great and amazing ways, but I wasn't taking care of myself. I was saving everyone around me. I was walking through the stench of death as I was treating patients. But all the while I was drowning in fear. And I looked and I sounded confident, but I hated my body. I ignored my cries for help, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I was spending more money than I was making, trying to make myself happy, right? Numbing the pain and dealing with all of these new things, these abnormal and crazy things that I was seeing and hearing and smelling, but I didn't really know, and I didn't learn how to deal with those things. And all the while things were building up and building up. I moved shortly after I started my career. I was thankful to be very successful and had an opportunity to move to Las Vegas, and I moved there. And if any of my Las Vegas people are on today, hi, you guys out there. I have a great family, 911 and emergency responder family out in Vegas. But out there, I learned to suck it up again and don't talk about it. And I learned to eat and drink a lot. I drank a lot to cover up the pain and try to figure things out and process through what I was seeing and hearing. I had one foot in church and I had one foot in the bar. We were in the club and I was searching for love. I was searching for acceptance all over the place. I used a whole bunch of things to avoid what I needed to deal with, including food and sex and alcohol and laughter and avoiding. I used avoiding as a tool. And I didn't even know it. I didn't know it then. I had a great time while I was in Vegas, and I met a lot of amazing people. Like I said, I was young though, and I was immature, and I wasn't healing. I was continuing to hurt myself. And I had a great relationship there, and that broke off, and we were very immature, and we had a lot of fun, but it was we were young, and that broke off, and that was really hard for me. And it was shortly after I bought my first house, and I had a lot of great life firsts while I lived there. And in that pain and in that new season, I met my now ex-husband, and he too had a lot of brokenness and was numbing in a lot of different ways. But we got married very young, and I noticed shortly after we got married, and I realized just how broken and hurt he was. And he too, like I said, was self-medicating and numbing. And the unraveling began there as things had piled up and piled up and piled up. In 2003, I had my daughter, Chloe, and she was a beautiful blessing. She still is. And for those of you following her journey with me on social media, she spoke many times. She's been on Ricardo's podcast and talked about growing up in 911 and how that changed her life. But she recently hurt her knee, and we got really bad news this morning that her knee is ravaged. She has multiple tears and will have to have surgery probably next week. And so we had another trauma this morning here at the house. But isn't that just what it is, right? It's one thing after another, no matter what season of life you're in, no matter where you are. And so we figure it out, and we process, and we deal with another piece of challenging news. But keep us in your thoughts and prayers, please. Keep her. She is not taking it well, and I don't blame her. It's a tough news. She's a softball player. She's really, really good. And so this is going to put her on a 9-month hiatus from softball. So there were tears this morning. But like I said, she's a blessing, a huge blessing to our life. And not only would the years following her birth be challenging and heartbreaking, but I also applied for a job in Wisconsin. So it brought me back home here to Wisconsin, and I got hired in Waukesha County as a 911 supervisor. And my job there has been challenging and tumultuous, but equally amazing and beautiful. And the people I work with there are extremely talented. And it's been such a cool ride through my 911 part of my career. And in 2006, then right after I started with Waukesha County, my son Egan was born. And 3 days later, we came home from the hospital and I was broken and I had this broken, bleeding body and I was recovering and it was challenging and hormonal. And we all know, how that matches up with 911, right? And all the stress we deal with at work. But my ex-husband, he was so broken and he was so hurting that he left us. And he went on a journey for himself. And I'm thankful to say that now we are friends and we co-parent well. And he has found his own journey to healing and wellness. But at the time, it was really hard and really challenging. Because I was deeply saddened, right? I wanted my husband back. I wanted him healthy, and it just wasn't an option at the time. And what I learned then in real life was that hurting people hurt people because it's what they know and it's all they can do. And so for the following 10 years, we had a tumultuous relationship. It was fueled by addiction, and we had a really messy divorce, restraining orders and fighting and court battles. And I look back and I just shake my head, and I'm so thankful that we're still not in that space and that God has pushed us through into this beautiful space of healing and wellness. But God protected me and he protected the kids and he protected my ex and sometimes from ourselves. And throughout this time, it's been a beautiful, beautiful relationship. So that's been a breath of fresh air from that perspective. But all the while, work and the calls and the stress of all that was happening at 911 was still compounding. And so I had a couple different really beautiful and wonderful things happen. One was, like I said, my career was continuing to move and take off. And I was, it was a great job, right? It paid the bills. It was steady. I could count on it. And so as a single mom, it was relevant and extremely important for me to have not only the outlet of going to work, but I was able to do something I was really good at. And so my career continued to expand. And in 2016, a friend of mine contacted me and she asked me to contribute to a book and write about my story, about this moment in time where I had this aha moment. And so I took on that challenge and I did that. And it was actually very therapeutic for me. I was able to process through parts of my story. And I had this season of clarity, I call it, where I was very clear about where I had come from, what I had gone through, and where I wanted to go. And I knew that I still needed to do work. But underneath all of that, I wasn't dealing with the underlying stress that was bubbling and boiling inside me. And I continued to ignore that part of myself. There were layers and levels, and the reality is that the unraveling just continued inside me. In April of 2017 in Waukesha County, we continued to build amazing programs. And not only did we have a CISM team, which I was part of and leading debriefings and diffusings, but we partnered with Jim Marshall and the 911 Training Institute, and we implemented and built a 911 peer support team for our staff. And I got to lead that. And we partnered with Dane County 911 here in Wisconsin and just formed this amazing bond. And we got to teach everyone else about how important stress management is. And we told everyone else how to take care of themselves. And all the while, I still wasn't taking care of myself. Have you ever done that? Have you ever just avoided what needed to be dealt with and just focused on everyone else around you? Me too. I did it over and over and over for a long time. And thankfully, though, I was able to speak a message of truth and speak a message of faith and really help a lot of people as I had opportunities to travel around the country and speak at many conferences. I was teaching at many 911 centers all over. And so I was thankful. And even in that, even in my avoiding, I think it was still therapeutic for me to speak and teach and talk. And it helped me in small moments to have to face my truth and deal with who I was and what I was doing. And Isn't that just the way of life, right? That we still have to deal with things. So shortly after that, in I think 2017, I had researched and known for a long time that um, I wanted to continue to move in my business. And I was waiting for my operations manager to retire. And so while that was happening for over a decade, I was not only experiencing new things in the dispatch center and creating this space for myself to keep learning and growing. But what I realized was that I needed to get my bachelor's degree. And so for as long as I had been in this as long as I had been in this career, I had been achieving and getting certifications, probably like many of you, and I never got my bachelor's degree. Although my list of certifications is really long and really awesome, and I'm really proud of that, I still was missing that component. And so I started back to school online, and I was working full time. I was a single mom. My kids live with me full time. I was a sole provider. And then I started taking online classes. And as you can imagine, this was one more thing that added to the unraveling as it was. I was busy, I was overloaded, I was maxed out, and I was unhealthy in almost every way. And I still was not stopping because I thought I was doing what I needed to do to continue to move in my career, to help my family, and to help myself. And the beautiful thing about starting online college was that I found a program that was called Crisis and Trauma Counseling. And what I realized about it was that they had classes specific to emergency responders, first responders, and I was thrilled. I was so excited to finally find something that spoke to who I was and what I wanted to do and who I could help. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this like I had thought many times before. And once it's done, I'll take care of myself. There's going to be a day where I can rest, where I can actually sleep, and I'll take care of myself. I promise. And you know what? God knew that day was coming, and it was coming sooner than I thought it was, because my timeline was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and I didn't even realize it. My brain was maxed out. I was emotionally detached from a lot of people, from a lot of things in my life. I was, even at that time, I was showing signs of PTSD and I didn't even realize it. I was very reactive. I normally am an extremely patient person and non-judgmental, and that wasn't me during that time at all. My personality was changing. And like I said, my brain was maxed out. What I was able to do and how I was able to function was becoming more and more challenging at that time too. And physically, I was just declining, even though I was like trying to work out or eat healthy. It didn't even matter. It couldn't even stick because my body was so maxed out and so overwhelmed. People at work were asking me, "Are you okay?" And after the first time, I didn't think anything of it. And then the second person asked me a couple days later, and the next week, a third person asked me, and I was like, what is wrong with all these people? Why is everyone asking me if I'm okay? And what I learned later was that these people were recognizing in me what I couldn't see in myself. They were recognizing this personality change. They were seeing exhaustion on my face and recognizing that I just wasn't myself. And I'm thankful for all those people who have walked beside me on this journey, because it did get a little crazy and pretty dark for a while. But have any of you had that? Have you had that happen? Are you recognizing symptoms in yourself? Are you recognizing a change in how you're handling stress, how you can't sleep, or your body hurts, or you have heartburn all the time? I remember very vividly not being able to process as much information as quickly as I normally could. And I was like, what in the heck? I must be tired. All right, moving on. Have an energy drink, right? Go for a walk quick and you'll be fine. And again, I was avoiding, and the unraveling continued and continued. And if you've ever felt any of those things, if you've ever felt that way, hit me up in the comments. Let me know. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's been avoiding. I'm not the only one that has been ravished by this crazy career. I don't think I am. And the great thing about this entire process was that through this time that people were asking me if I was okay, I had already, diffused, debriefed, peer supported more people that I can count. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful that I was there for so many people and been able to speak truth and life into people when I couldn't speak truth and life into myself. And I praise God for that. But the good thing about those people asking me if I was okay and for these tiny, small moments of truth was that along the way, somebody said to me, maybe you should go see a counselor. You've got all of us calling EAP, and you've got all these people all over the country that you're helping, and you're speaking this into, and you're telling everyone how important this is. But what are you doing, Christine? What are you doing for yourself? And it was a mirror that someone put right in front of my face, and they said, quit lying to yourself. Quit lying to yourself and quit lying to us, because if you're not taking care of yourself in the way that you're helping all of us do, then there's something wrong with this process. And my character is really important to me. And I knew in that moment, I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I was like, yeah, they're right. I'm being a hypocrite. I'm telling all these people to do something that I won't do for myself. And so I called EAP. And I found a counselor that works specifically with emergency responders, which I was really adamant about because I just couldn't stomach the thought of going in to talk to somebody and they're like, wait, what do you do? What do you mean that's hard? Oh, and just, no. So I did. I found a woman who had already had that experience and great deal of knowledge. And I called her and I made an appointment. And in between that call and making that appointment and when the appointment actually happened is when everything changed. Everything changed. So this one day, I'm sitting at a coffee shop and I'm finishing a paper, my last paper for class, for school, for my online school that I'm in, because I need to get my bachelor's degree. And this one day, right, this is where we started this whole conversation. And I told you about the one day that changed everything. And this is the day. I was getting my bachelor's. My schedule was packed. I had back to back to back everything. But I had this time carved out and I sat at a coffee house for 6 hours and I wrote a paper that was huge and amazing. And there were a lot of citations in it. And I knew I had to go home. I had to get everything ready and I was back to work the next day. And as I pulled away from that stop sign, this woman hit my car. And what happened when I got in that car accident was that I thought for this split second, when I heard the metal hitting the metal, what I thought from the driver's seat of my Yukon truck, my great big truck, was that I had hit a child on a bike. But I couldn't see because she hit the passenger front of my truck. And because I sit so high and I'm so far up, I couldn't see out there. And in this moment, this world was colliding inside me. And this can of worms that I had been adding to and adding to and adding to for all these years and all this time, it exploded inside of me. And I broke. I just broke. And we pulled over and I realized it wasn't a child on a bike. And I realized it was this woman in her vehicle. And my heart was beating so fast. And I was having this shock, crazy trauma response. And I'm sure you can relate to that, right? Your heart is beating so fast and you're breathing, your pupils are dilated, you're ready for fight or flight. And I was trying to stay in work mode so I could figure out what was going on and no one was hurt, but really I was hurt. I got hurt that day and the can of worms inside me exploded. And it was the first time in my entire career that I couldn't get my heart rate to slow down. It was the first time in my entire career where I couldn't get control again. Because throughout my career, I had seen many amazing and crazy and sad and life-shattering scenes play out in front of me. I had heard the cries and the screams many times. I had done quality assurance for years up to this point, listening to just shattering calls over and over and over again. And all of these things, they had been ravaging me from the inside out, and I was ignoring them and ignoring them. And so as I was going back to work the next day, and my heart rate was still up and it was still beating, and I was still in this fight or flight, and I couldn't stop. I got back to work, and what happened was, for the first time, I couldn't stop crying. I had never been a big crier in my life, but for the first time ever, I couldn't stop crying. And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to handle it. I was scared. And what I thought was that I was a failure. What I thought was that I was weak. I thought that if I admitted to being broken, I would never stop crying and I would never get back to doing my job. And it scared me more than anything had in my entire career. After all those things I had listened to and all the blood I had seen and all the last breaths that I had shared with people, whether it was over the phone or in person, this is the moment that scared me because I thought I was done. And thankfully I wasn't. Because this story is a story of hope. The good thing is, though, that I would never be the same after that day. And even though in the moment I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me, what I realized was that I came to the end of myself and I had nowhere else to go. But I was hopeful and I was still avoiding. I just thought it was a thing. I thought I was too tired and I thought I was too stressed out. And I thought there were too many politics at work and too much bullshit to deal with. And it was hard being a single mom and raising kids and trying to grocery shop and trying to find time to sleep and going to school. Can anybody relate to this? I stayed home from work a couple days after that because on that one day back to work, I actually had a panic attack. It was my first time ever having a panic attack in my entire life. And I thought I knew about them and I thought I understood them because I had walked through that chaos with so many other people. I had walked through panic attacks and I had talked people down, not only in 911, but in peer support in CISM. And in the dark hours of the night when other emergency responders were calling my cell phone and saying, Christine, I don't know what to do anymore and I need help. My body is shaking and I can't sleep and I can't eat and I don't know what's happening. But I knew what was happening and I could help them. I stepped into the chaos with other people and I helped walk them through, and I got to speak truth and life into people, even while I was unraveling. In this anxiety attack, it rocked me. It rocked me to my core. I remember standing outside we have a patio behind our 911 center and it's quiet and there's a lot of trees and we have a garden out there. It's a peaceful place. And I remember standing there and I couldn't catch my breath. But I knew what was going on. And I was trying to talk to myself and saying, calm down, you're okay. Don't let anyone see. You don't want anyone to know what's going on. But people knew already. People already knew what was happening. So the next couple of days, like I said, I stayed home from work because I couldn't even go in. I couldn't drive. My body was freaking out. My mind was freaking out. I didn't tell anyone what was going on. I didn't seek help. And I didn't even want to say it out loud because I thought if I said it out loud, it would be real. And if it was real, I didn't know how to deal with that. I just couldn't. I thought I would lose my job. And those days turned into more days. And eventually I had day terrors. I had nightmares. I had flashbacks. So real. I could taste them. I could smell them. And I couldn't understand what was happening. I was startled at every little noise, every cough, every door shutting. I would be startled and I would shake and it would just reverberate through me. I had this exaggerated response to any little tiny thing. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I could hardly talk. My brain was just not connecting. And I knew what I wanted to say, and I couldn't say it. I wanted to process information. I was looking at a color or an orange and a flavor, and I couldn't say it. I couldn't find my words, and it scared the crap out of me. I thought I was having a stroke. And then I called that that counselor, and that appointment day hit, and I got to talk with her and speak with her, and I cried the entire time. And I sat there in her office and I just cried. And she said to me, and it was the words that I knew were coming. And she said, Christine, you have PTSD. You are experiencing PTSD symptoms right now. This is what's happening. Your body and your mind is in complete crisis mode. And I thought in that moment that I was done for. But this story is a story of hope. And I want you to know that if you're experiencing those things, if you're having some of those symptoms, you are not done for, and your career is not over. I promise you. My career has been launching into beautiful, beautiful things since I said the words out loud, like, I have PTSD. And what I learned in that day and that season and that time was that I had to stop and I had to surrender. I had to surrender to the rest and the rejuvenation that I needed and that God had available to me. I had to be obedient to stay home and rest. I had to be obedient to fill out FMLA paperwork and not go to work. And I thought I'd be out for a week. I thought I'd be out for 2 weeks, and it ended up being months upon months upon months. And it was one of the hardest spaces I've ever been in, because I don't know about you, but I've worked for my entire life. Since I think I was like 13 years old, I started babysitting. Then I worked park and rec. I worked at the beach. I taught swim lessons, and forever and always, it's all I can remember. It's all I know is working, multiple jobs, going to school, all kinds of things. And so when I wasn't working, I had to not only deal with the emotions of what was happening, but I also had to deal with the fact that I completely no, let me rephrase that. My identity at that point in time, I realized, was steeped in my work, my titles, my certifications, and what I was doing every day for everyone else, instead of the truth about who I am and what I am. And that doesn't change whether I'm working or I'm home dealing with PTSD. So that was one of the components that I had to deal with when I had PTSD. The emotions were another thing. I was not an overly emotional person. And what I learned through this process was that I had siloed emotions so that while I was at work, I could compartmentalize them and I didn't have to deal with them. I didn't have to start crying in the middle of a call because it was really sad. I was able to put all those things aside and keep working, keep working, keep working. What I learned, though, is that I never dealt with them. I put them in a box. I put them in a silo. And even when I came home, I never took the time to unpack that and release it and get it out. And that's part of where my unraveling became relevant. As things became more and more and more, they just kept packing in. I was relearning then. I was changing the narrative about what I believed. I had met, thankfully, a number of other 911 dispatchers who had dealt with different forms of PTSD or different levels of PTSD and had not succumbed to them either. They had been healthy and well and gotten the right kind of help. And I was thankful for that. I was thankful for all the people that had come into my life and had spoke truth into me up until that point and then past the point of where my accident had occurred. I was at this point, I was learning to take control by owning my truth. And by that, I mean, I had to admit that I was not taking care of myself. I had to learn new ways that were different than what we had learned, the suck it up way, right? The don't talk about it. Stop talking about it. Stop crying about it. Go outside, take a walk, you'll be fine. And I had to learn that that wasn't the best way to manage things. And through this time, while I was learning, my confidence grew. I began personal power. I realized that the clarity I needed in my life and the clarity that I needed to get healthy and well was exactly the clarity that people in this business needed from me. They needed to hear this story and I needed to pass it on. And so my faith grew because what I knew was that even though I had made bad decisions, even though I had ignored things, that in God's goodness, he was going to use all of these things to help me grow and build and just continue to be healthy and well. And he did. And in that, I found my joy. I found peace. I found peace that was unchanged by my circumstances. I found an identity that was steeped in peace that didn't change with the type of work that I did. It didn't change with the title that I had or didn't have. And I believe that it gave me a second chance at my life, a second chance with my children. It gave me a second chance with my ex-husband. It gave me a second chance in my career. And since then, my career path has changed all completely, totally, completely. And that's why I'm here today to talk to you as a courage coach and a 911 supervisor and not as an operations manager, because that job wasn't for me. There were different plans in the works, and my future, this is my future. This is where it brought me. And I'm so thankful. So what this has done for me, it's given me an opportunity to speak life and truth into other people. It's given me an opportunity to start and build a coaching business. And what I want for you today is to know that it's okay to love yourself enough to surrender. Surrender is a big word that we don't use very often. And usually it's a word we hear when it comes to SWAT teams and all these things we deal with at work. But it's okay for you to surrender and love yourself enough. Love yourself enough to face your fear. Love yourself enough to ask for help. Love yourself enough to say, I'm doing okay right now, but I think I have some stuff. I have some trauma. I have some things in my past that are sitting inside me, and I've just been covering them up, and I'm avoiding. Love yourself enough to look in the mirror and be brutally honest with yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Stop it. It's not good for you. Love yourself enough to call me. Love yourself enough to get a coach and just say, hey, I have this thing that I need to talk about. Or, hey, I want to survive my career. So you know what? I'm going to talk to you once a month for the rest of my career. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? Unloading all this stuff, these abnormal situations, abnormal circumstances, abnormal things that we hear and see and feel and smell. They are not meant to be carried around. And I had to learn that. I had to learn that it wasn't for me to carry everything around for my entire career, but I was to unload and unpack and get rid of all of these things, mentally process through them, and get ready for the next thing, right? And for any of you that have known me for any time, you hear me say, just do the next right thing. Do the next right thing. And I urge you today, what is your next right thing? Is there something that comes to mind when I say that? Do the next right thing. If there is, throw it in the comments. Share with us. Share part of your story. Build hope and build a future, not only for yourself, but the people that are around you. If you feel like you're the only one, you're not. Read these comments. People are in here. They're helping me to speak my message and know my truth. You guys are helping me to find courage right now to say what's right and what's good. And if you need that too, look in these comments and share part of your story and just say, I need help. I need prayer. I need somebody to talk to. Please give me your email address. I will reach out to you. I promise I will. You guys can reach me, and I'm going to put my stuff in the notes too. I'll do it right now really quick. But it's easy. It's Christine Jean at christinejean.net. That's my new email. If I can type it here. But that's how you can reach me. And I can be available to you. And I tell people all the time, I'm always available at 2 a.m. You know why? Because those are the moments when you can't sleep and you are just to the end of yourself, right? And you don't know what to do and you don't know where to turn, then you call me. Even if it's 2 a.m, it's okay. Because those are the moments where we need to speak truth and life into each other. Those are the moments where we need to hear truth. And the truth is, you're going to be okay. The truth is, you are strong enough to get through this. I promise you. I promise you. If I can do it, you could do it too. And there were many that went before me, many people that were strong enough to go through this before me, and they spoke truth and life into me. You guys, I'm so excited to be here today. Big exhale. Thank you for letting me share my story with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to something that is sometimes really uncomfortable. These are just things that we never talk about in 911, but you know what? I'm going to keep telling my story, and I'm going to tell it in every place of this country and all over this world. If it helps somebody to take care of themselves, if it helps somebody to finish out their career well, if it helps somebody to know their truth and to know how to be well and how to be healthy and how to find peace, I'm going to keep telling my story. And I want you to tell your story too. Please keep telling your story. So let me wrap this up for us, because I think I only have a couple minutes. Yeah, we got 10 minutes. If you have questions, put them down in the ask a question and I'll answer them. But let me just get to the end of this. So I went back to work, and thankfully I had a doctor. I had many people on this team of people that helped me through my recovery. And I had FMLA paperwork that I filled out, and I took time off of work and used my sick time, my vacation time, any other benefit time that I had. Some of it was no pay, but it was very few and far between. And I worked hard. And to be honest, I had to make a decision. And I decided that PTSD would not have me. PTSD would not decide the end of my career. And I promised myself that if this was the end of my career, that was fine, but it would be my decision and not PTSD. And I worked my ass off to go back to that building. And I had to face a lot of fears, and I had to go over and over and over and over again till I could walk in the building and not be shaking and not have headaches and not have problems. But I did it, and you can do it too. And I went back to work, and I've been back to work now for a while, and over a year, over 18 months, almost 2 years. And the time is flying by, and it's been amazing. And throughout this time, I had I had signed up for a life coaching class. I don't even know why I signed up for it, because like I told you, I think life coaching is stupid. I hated the name. I didn't know what they did. But for some reason, I just felt so compelled to be in this program. And I'm so excited that I did, because what I realized is that until I become a counselor, life coaching is speaking my language. Life coaching is where it's at when it comes to emergency responders and 911 dispatchers, because it's real and it's raw and it's bullet points, and it's let's get down to the truth. Let's create a plan and let's work through it. And that is totally me. It's totally me, and I know it's totally you. And so what I have found and discovered is that this coaching business that I've started is amazing, and it is exactly what people need until either they're ready to go to counseling, or after counseling, then they come see me as a coach. And it's just been this beautiful partnership between the counseling and the coaching. And so I implore you, please, if you need help, reach out. If it's not to me, that's okay, but reach out to someone. And if you need to find someone in your area, I can help you do that, or I can give you the names of people that can help you do that. There are many, many resources in this business. And so as my career continues, I am transitioning, but I still work full-time as a 911 dispatch supervisor, and I love every day of it. I'm so blessed. I work at an amazing center, but I'm also building this business, and I'm building this business because, you know, at some point I need to get out of the 911 center. It's just been enough, and I've put my time in, but I still want to speak life and truth into this business. And I believe that I have something to say. And what I want to do is I want to help all these young kids coming up in the business to build something better than I did, to build a firm foundation so that they can survive a career without having to deal with PTSD. Or if they do get symptoms and it is something they're dealing with, it becomes this small season of their career, and we've already equipped them to recognize it. We've equipped them and educated them to deal with it, and we have a network of people surrounding them. And I know there are a lot of you out there who believe that same thing, right? That we know better and now we need to do better. Now I've lived it, I know better, and I'm going to teach somebody else to do it better. And I implore you to do the same thing. I encourage you. Research for yourself, take some classes, get certified. My big goal is to create a whole team of courage coaches, that specialize in trauma support for emergency responders. That's my goal. That's what I'm building. And that is where I'm going. So I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for letting me share my story. I'm not done yet. I'm going to look at these questions because I got a couple. And if you haven't looked at the poll down on the bottom, please go in there. I'd love to get your feedback. And somebody says here, financially, how were you able to handle the time off to find yourself and to deal with it? Thank you, Joyce. Like I said before, I did use benefit time because all y'all know we're not covered yet as 911 dispatchers, for all of that compensation for workman's comp, which, we all can agree it should be. But needless to say, God provided, and I had benefit time to use. And the dispatch center that I worked for was extremely, they were extremely helpful with helping me get that paperwork in and getting it approved through HR and then utilizing that time. So I was still getting paid. And I could still cover, my health insurance and all those kind of things, because all the people I was seeing, that was all going through my health insurance as well. I hope that answered your question, Joyce. And what recommendations would you suggest monthly to create a pathway to healing without losing the security of your unforgiving call center? Oof, that's like a whole nother session, Joyce. To create a pathway to healing without losing the security of your unforgiving call center. Oh, that's tough. The one thing and the place that I have found the most security and the most safety is in this 911 community. So I'm in a number of Facebook groups and, within the trenches, the podcast. Ricardo has a number of amazing guests on there. And if there's somebody that I have found a good story with or I relate with, I reach out to them. I go to conferences and connect with people. 911 Wonder Woman, they're doing amazing things. I'll be partnering with them throughout this year and next year. We're going to be launching some awesome content and just some cool ideas that we're coming up with to help you find places to connect and find other like-minded 911 professionals and emergency responders so that we can keep building each other up. And if there's any other questions, I don't know if anything was in the comments because I didn't get to track too much, but my time is just coming up to a close. So if you have a question, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let me know you guys are here. I see a lot of you saying you love my shirt, my Fearless shirt. If you follow me on Facebook, I'm Christine Jean Coaching and Christine Jean Bannister, and I'm always rocking cool t-shirts and amazing positive statements because I want you to find your truth in what I'm saying and who I am because other people helped me find my truth. So
that was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't even cry.
I might have. So one of the things, there were so much of what you said just really resonated with a lot of us. But when you were talking about going through the PTSD, getting the help, coming out, I don't want to say on the other end, because I know we're constantly work of improvement, but like saying you're not going to lose your job. Like you're going to get better at your job if you take care of this. It's scary to take that step. I know for a lot of dispatchers, like people are going to think I'm crazy. My boss is going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to lose my job.
Yes.
But that's part of what's going on up here, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And that's something I didn't talk about. So I appreciate you just, walking me into that. But yes, you guys, Number one, you are not crazy. And I believed that lie too. Number two, you're not going to lose your job. And I believed that lie too. I have, thankfully, in my school, and then all these amazing resources. So this is one of the resources that I love, and it's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And this book is all about how our body stores trauma, whether it's childhood trauma. We saw a really bad accident this one day, this one time, but it's in there. And then all the trauma we hear and we feel and we see and we smell in our career as emergency responders. So no, you're not crazy. I promise you. You can process through what is happening in your body and in your brain, and you can get back to a new normal. And it's such a play on words, right? Everybody says, I want to get back to normal. I never wanted to get back anywhere. I wanted to keep moving forward. I want a new normal, and this is my new normal. Now, it's not like I never have any reactions or triggers. I actually have triggers all the time, but now I can recognize them like that. Now I know exactly what to do to help myself, and it takes me a split second. It's 10 seconds to be like, this is happening. Here's why. Okay, I'm good. It's become such a process that's so fast to me, right? Just like when we learn how to do CAD, right? Something on our CAD system we learn new. The first time you're like, got to follow the directions and you got to look again. And hey, am I doing this right? And the next time you kind of do it, but you're still looking. The third, fourth, fifth, 10th time, you're like talking to somebody else across the room and you're still typing it in the CAD. Right? Then the next day, the next week, you're like drinking soda and doing it with one hand. Now, dealing with my PTSD is like drinking a soda and doing it with one hand. I can do it so quickly. And I also know too, that when there's something that's more significant that, okay, I need to talk to somebody or I need to journal this out. And I really need to take a day to just breathe and be quiet and process. It's just helped me to know and recognize when and where I need to increase or do something different with my self-care. So no, this does not have to break you, and it won't break you. It won't. I promise you. All the tools are there. All the resources are there for you to learn and succeed. There are 911 peer support teams all over this country that can help you. I can help you. The 911 Training Institute, Jim Marshall, he has tons of amazing content. Tons. Ryan Dedman, all those guys, they have amazing classes, amazing content. Jim has a book, the Resilient, I think it's the Resilient 911 Professional. Mm-hmm. There's so much good information in there. And the best part about all of this is that it's not just about my brain is messed up or I'm having a mental health crisis and I have to wait it out. That's not true. There's so much science and data to back up trauma, PTSD, and how to manage it. It is astounding. And it's beautiful because, like I said, in the Unraveling, God was still putting all these amazing things in my path. And one of those for me was school. So all of my college classes have been about how to deal with stress, how to deal with trauma, and the science and data behind what goes on in our brain when we're faced with trauma all the time. And so what I learned right away was that I'm not crazy. This is actually physically happening to me. And it's as quickly and as consciously as it's happening, I can as quickly and consciously decide, okay, now I'm going to use this tool to intercept this and we're going to deal with this and it's going to be done. And so again, PTSD doesn't get to have me. That's it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. That was awesome.
You're welcome. I see one more quick question here. It says my email isn't working. Well, that super stinks. That's no good. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a different email. That stinks. I just got it. I'm trying to set up all these new things for my business, and it's frustrating when stuff doesn't work. So there's Christine Bannister 828@gmail.com. You can reach me there for sure. Yeah. Okay. And I am going to offer, a hugely discounted coaching package for anybody that's in attendance at this conference today, or if you're listening later on, if you're at work and you can't listen, or you're sleeping right now and you can't listen, for anybody that listens to this conference, a very hugely discounted coaching package for 6 or 12 coaching sessions. So just hit me up if you're interested in that, and I'll send you the pamphlet, and I'm here for whatever you need. Christine Jean Coaching.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't wait to see what you do next. We'll be following you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too. Bye, everybody.